We ready, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks for your patience. We should be live on Facebook now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's time again to start the Gallatin City Council committee meeting. And right now, we're doing this by electronic means, so I got an order from the governor, and we will take a vote on this order from the governor, and we'll also call roll call at the same time. So this I will read. Pursuant to Governor Lee Executive Order number 16, that's equipment orders and the need to limit community spread of COVID-19, the February 23rd, 2021 Gallatin City Council meeting will be held by electronic means. The meeting will be live streamed to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the council and the citizens of Gallatin. And you may join this meeting by dialing 1-470-250-9358 or 1-470-381-2552 and enter webinar ID number 822-8779-5890. And at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Kittrell for the roll call and a vote on this electronic meeting. Ms. Kittrell, are you there? Okay.
Okay. Do we want a motion for an electronic vote? Or?
Motion to approve on electronic. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Fan. Ms. Kittrell, you ready?
I am. Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes, and here.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes, and here.
Councilman Fan,
Yes, and here.
Councilwoman George,
Yes, and here.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes, and present.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes, and here.
Councilman Overton.
Yes, and present.
We have a quorum and a 7-0 vote on the electronic meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. Moving along, this approval of the minutes, and there's none provided. So then we're going to move down to public recognition. And I would like to ask Mayor Brown to keep the minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep your comments to 5 minutes. Paige will be taking the time right there. And I'd like to ask Jeff Hensel, if you will, to see who's in the audience that would like to speak under public recognition. And please state your name and your address and limit to 5 minutes. Jeff?
Very good, sir. Please use the raise your hand function. If you're using a PC or the app, you'll see that at the bottom of your screen. You can mouse over the bottom of your screen. You'll see the raise your hand function. And we've got a few people who have already raised their hand. Let's start with Pascal Jovans. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening all. Pascal Jovans, 1335 Longfellow Pike. I'm surprised again to see that the item respectfully asked to be added to this council are not there, and that the charter of the city are not followed. Again, the charter said that all department heads and all other persons desiring to present any matter to the council committee shall notify the mayor in writing of the matters to be placed upon the council committee agenda. Persons, if we go on the charter, on the definition, persons, they say the word person shall extend and be applied to associations, clubs, societies, firms, partnerships, and bodies, politic and corporate, as well as to individuals. I'm individuals, I'm a person, I'm following the charter, so I still don't understand why. I'm pretty sure Susan did a lot of work on it and found a way to go around that. But you know, I'm just reading the charter and that's what it says. So you still don't want to talk about things that matters to a lot of people like me. So I'm still gonna talk about it. Let's talk again about the secondary gear of our firefighters. I still think that these guys need to be taken care of, and the secondary gear is important for their health and the safety of our firefighters. We should buy it right now. the money, I've been following you guys for a while. I've been seeing the report, and the great audit we had said the city is on a good financial health. So why can't we put the money the firefighters need to buy secondary gear so we protect them from cancer and other bad things that can happen to them? That should not be happening. We should not be waiting for a grant. What's going to happen if we don't get the grant? That should be the other side. We should spend the money, and if we get the grant, reimburse the money. We got a lot of money from the government. Where is that money? Oh, that money already got spent by the mayor on a bunch of things. I remember there were laptops and audio equipment. But again, when I go in the charter, I'm wondering why all the things who got bought didn't got presented to the council. Charter said that the mayor has virtually no administrative authority, cannot independently authorize the expenditure of municipal funds for any purpose. Sorry, that's not in the charter. There was an MTAS comment on the question asked. So you guys use MTAS a lot. That's what MTAS say. Another thing I find really amazing is that we authorize city council persons to use a personal email address for city business. I think that's not acceptable. Every city council should use a city email address. If they don't do that, I'm pretty sure the city doesn't have a way to safeguard information to be available for the public in case of request. I would like the IT department to enlighten us on that. And the third thing I wanted to talk about is having the city put in place a social media policy. We're in a world where social media is a really important thing, and the city has no social media policy, and we see some city employees attacking all day long citizens on social media. That should not happen. So that would be great if something was looked at. But again, why are we not put money out for firefighters? I think we should put our priorities straight. And, again, I'm listening to everything that's happening. And when I hear that, I still have 15 minutes, sir. 15 seconds. So I think that instead of spending money on resurfacing a parking lot with a private property, we should put that money to our firefighters. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Okay, next we have Dr. Saunders. Go ahead.
Hello, I wanted to just say thank you to I guess it would be the street department. I'm not really sure, public utilities, for helping us during the recent snowstorm. Although I was shut in because our development is private and was not plowed. I understand that the streets of Gallatin were plowed very nicely. I have a family member who had to get out, and I really just wanted to give public recognition to the department responsible for helping the citizens of Gallatin during our recent snowstorm. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, I think we did have a phone caller. Just a reminder, if you're on calling by phone, you raise your hand by hitting *9. And for everyone else, you raise your hand by clicking the raise your hand button. We do have an additional person, Manny. Go ahead.
I also just want to thank the Public Works for last week during the snowstorm, keeping the roads clear. I work at the nursing home in Gallatin here, and I mean, getting to work and stuff, it made it so much easier. Also, the EMA helped us, transport our nurses and techs and dietary staff to get there so that we can fill our duties. So thank y'all. Thank Public Works, and thank you, City Council, for all y'all do, and Mayor Paige Brown.
Appreciate it. We do have a cell phone caller 08 ending in 085. Go ahead. You'll have to
Yes.
unmute. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I called it. I was just calling in regards to the Twin Eagles project and just wanted to voice my concern.
Sir, can I
and
ask you,
that
can I ask you to wait a second, sir? I'm sorry. Jeff, we're getting some reverb.
is that
Are
better?
you guys hearing that? The echoing?
I think you need to mute the.
And then you put her up. You want playing on that for real?
Look, no, how about I just did.
Mute the previous
Hello?
speaker. Miss.
There you go. I'm sorry, sir. You may resume. I'm sorry.
We also need to get the speaker's name and address, please.
Yes, sir. What's your name and your address?
Yeah, my name is Scott Goodwin and we're 592 Douglas Lane.
Okay, Scott, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. I had it on speakerphone. Off. I was calling in regards to the Twin Eagle, and my concern is that road is extremely narrow, and I just do not feel like that road is equipped to handle the additional traffic that would come from that. And just want to voice my concern and make sure that those things would need to be addressed before that's approved, in my opinion. I appreciate y'all giving that serious consideration to protect Douglas Lane, but also the people in Twin Eagles, so this is being done responsibly.
Thank you, Scott. Jeff, next call.
Victoria, go ahead. You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
It's Victoria Hagan, 599 Douglas Lane, Gallatin, Tennessee here. I'm calling about the Twin Eagles expansion. My concern is, I know that the city wants to annex in people that want to be annexed in. Jones bought the land, a while back, and this is supposedly his only egress as a second entrance. He was told many years ago,
Ms. Hagan, I think we lost you.
500 that he currently has. And he did not do that. He bought more land, hoping to build another, what's the number on that right now? 171 additional homes. 171 additional homes, we're looking at double that for cars, dumping onto a county road that is 18 feet wide. And I did read all of his paperwork that has been submitted to you all in the packet you received. And it said that Judy Harden stated Douglas Lane is 18-foot roadbed. And her words exactly were, I think it's sufficient based on the traffic study that she was given. Well, that traffic study was done in March or the first part of April of 2020, which was the height of the COVID. Myself being a bus driver here for Sumner County, I know I travel this road 4 times a day being a bus driver, and I didn't travel it at all that day or those days that this was going on because of COVID. I also know we have some teachers and many other people that were working from home. So that traffic study, I don't believe is accurate in any sense of the word. The first time that it was brought before the Planning Commission in Gallatin, it was unanimously turned down because of the dangerous conditions. The captain of the fire department there in Gallatin also stated that he was not happy with it. Also, now reading some of the information in the packet you were all given, it says the captain says, the fire chief Williams states that the fire station is 2.5 miles away and it would take him 5 minutes to get to it, to the entrance on Douglas Lane, which is more than the 4-minute minimum that is supposed to be. And the second fire station is 9 minutes away. He states that he feels like there would need to be another fire station, that they don't have enough fire equipment or men. The Public Works Department indicated that the County Road Douglas Lane should be evaluated. So I'm just feeling like there's an awful lot of big no's here on this plan. You have Twin Eagles, the Bowles Farm now, and all of this, by the way, would come down Douglas Lane. Most people would make a left on 25 to go to 109 to make a right to go to 386 to get into Nashville or to get to Gallatin to work or to Hendersonville to work. They'd all go the same direction. So now we have Twin Eagles, which has 500 homes currently. You're going to have the Bowles Farm, which it looks like there's going to be 2,250 residential units there. Eagle Creek. There's the new, what you guys were talking about last night, the corner of 109 and 25, opposite of the Bowles, which is going to be another development. Cumberland Point, which has already been annexed in, and you're allowing 100 townhomes being there. And then you have Fairway Farms, which is also being built right there at the top of that crest of that hill. And this is all one little area here that is being overrun with traffic. And 25 is a two-lane road to begin with. So I'm just feeling like with all this extra traffic, the infrastructure is not there. These are either county or state roads. And the city, I feel, is allowing all this annexation in this building, and you're not looking at the whole picture. I was told that, you know, when you own the land, you have a right to do what you want as it with it. It's not a right to get annexed into the city. I'm sorry. He bought it as county land. It ought to have stay in county land and let him deal with the county and do it as it needs to be done because it's a county road.
Ms. Hagan, we've got time called on you. Or can you wrap it up shortly, please?
Yeah, I just, that's just how I feel. My husband's also here and he has something to say. If I need to lower my hand and then re-raise it, we'll do that.
Let's do that, Ms. Hagan, if you would, please.
All right. So that's.
Jeff, thank you very much. Jeff, you got somebody else in line?
Actually, we do not. So
we can back up to Mr. Hagan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Hagan.
Yeah, they'll have to unmute you. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Oh, go ahead, Jack.
I'm Jack Hagan. I live at 599 Douglas Lane also. The last two times that you guys have met over this, once with the planning committee, once with the city council, you deferred it to the county. That's the proper place for this. Nothing's changed. It's the same narrow road. And the only thing that's changed has been an election. And I happen to know that Randy Jones was kind enough to donate a lot of money to some of you council members. You know who you are, and I know who you are too. But that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, TJ Posey.
Mr. Posey, can you hear?
You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Posey. We still can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hello,
We can hear you. Go ahead.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, would you state your name and your address, please?
Yes, this is Thelma Posey at 1540 Woods Ferry Road, and I've talked to Mr. Fennell before about this. Yeah, as you know, they're putting in Woods Crossing right behind my house, behind our property. Our piece of land, this house was built in 1947. It's part of the Kirkpatrick Farm. And when they put this little house down here, it was not really meant to take on any changes to the land around here. Otherwise, it's going to be underwater. It sits in the valley, right on the little creek. The creek is less than 20 foot from my bedroom window. When the water gets up, which it does occasionally on heavy rains, it's 10 foot from my bedroom window, and it flows very heavily because it catches all the water from all these hills around here. Paul Way across the street, the city flooded him out several years ago, and he floods every year. His flood water comes across the road into our yard and into our creek. So we're in pretty grave danger anyway of flooding. And like I said, when the Kirkpatricks put this little house down here, it was not meant to withstand any land changes around here. And I know that there's a major sewer line going through the front of this property that they're trying to connect to. But there's people all around here that's got property that they could go through and not put them in danger as much as they are us. Mr. Kirkpatrick, if he was in his right mind, we all know he's sick. I've been talking to him because we've been neighbors for 20 years. But I have nothing else that I can do except reach out to y'all and to ask them please to move that line somewhere else. It will be less than 40 foot from my house where they've got it marked. Mrs. Goodall told me that they would make it 50 foot or more because they had to give it at least 30 foot for an easement. And I thought she meant they were going to add on 50 to that. Well, I was wrong. So now it's going to be less than 40 foot from my house. And it's really going to mess up everything around here water-wise. Okay, I don't, I don't know how else to say it any better except they're putting me in grave danger. And I'm trying to what way I can to make them do something else about it. Any questions?
No, ma'am, we're just taking your comments under advisement, but thank you very much, Ms. Posey.
Okay, now, like I said, there's a lot of neighbors around here that don't like Woods Crossing going in over here and disturbing our neighborhood anyway. And I know they're trying to get to that main sewer line down there, but we're the lowest house on this street. Why do they have to come and infringe on our territory? Mr. Kirkpatrick, I'm sure if he could think right, he would say you could go to the other side of his property. He's got property all down this street. And other people do that, would not be in as much danger as we're in. But we have had to do a lot of work around here just to get the water to keep from sitting underneath our house, coming off the hills. Okay, well, I'd appreciate it if y'all can do anything about that or get back with me, let me know something. Or give me any kind of words of encouragement. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Posey. Mr.
Thank you.
Henschel?
Yes, Chris Osborne, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Chris Osborne, 620 Douglas Lane. I'm again reiterating how we do not agree with the new development connecting into Douglas Lane just because of the traffic patterns and the how wide the roads are not to support anything like that. I think it should go to the county, not to the city, to be advised if they allow it or not. But I know this has been turned down multiple times in this council, and I think we should continue to do that and let him find a different way of doing this without affecting all these families on Douglas Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Mr. Hensel?
That appears to be everyone who's raised their hand. Let me just double check panelists. And that is everyone who's raised their hand.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving along now, we're into our regular agenda. Item number 1, this is adoption of a planned service.
Mayor's comment.
Oh, I am so sorry, Mayor.
That's okay.
All right, jump in there.
That's okay. I had an earlier request from a department head to move up a couple of items, but that was Chief Williams, and I don't think he's here anyway, so I think we can keep them where they are on the agenda. Someone from the fire department jump in if I'm wrong about that. I see Chief Woodward here, so I assume that he's going to be here for the meeting. I'm sure he'd love to spend the whole meeting with us, so thank you. The thing that I really want to say is I want to thank our department heads and our employees who really worked hard last week in spite of the weather to make sure that our citizens, our city, and our employees were taken care of. We did have some people out of work due to the weather, but departments like our planning department and our finance department and certainly police and fire and public works, and others. I probably shouldn't have even called out those because I don't want to leave anyone out. Public utilities is working, and then everybody had people that were working in different capacities within their department. But our finance department, they came in on the worst day, thanks to our finance director who played chauffeur to make sure that our employees got paid. And our public works department, oh my goodness, they worked double 12-hour shifts around the clock, clearing streets and taking care of our roads. Getting rid of the ice was very challenging. It's not just about clearing snow from the road. And so these folks were working really hard to do that. I really appreciate the people under public comment that mentioned them this evening. I think that they really appreciate the recognition of our citizens. And I also want to say that on social media, there was some thread where people were so complimentary of those workers. And so I appreciate our citizens recognizing their efforts as well. So good job to everybody who worked last week, and hopefully it's the last bad weather of the winter. Then we can look forward to spring. So I think that's it under Mayor's comments. I do have some items under other business this evening, but that's it.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to jump in front of you. I'll apologize. So now we're going to go down to the regular agenda. And Bill McCord, this is adoption of plan of services on Douglas Lane. Bill?
Okay, let me do a little screen sharing here. Is that visible to each of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. We have several items tonight. The first three items are kind of related, and they involve the request for annexation and plan of service and a rezoning of a 59-acre parcel of land located adjacent to Twin Eagles subdivision. The property, this aerial photograph shows an outline of the 59 acres that the applicant is requesting a annexation petition, submitted an annexation petition and plan of service, and also request to rezone the property from county's rural residential zoning classification to the city of Gallatin mixed use designation. The rest of the Twin Eagles subdivision is also zoned MU, mixed use. The went too quick. Twin Eagles subdivision has been developed in several phases and is annexed at different times. The southerly portion adjacent to Red River Road and Highway 109, generally shown in the green and the blue pattern on this screen. In the 2006, 2008 to 2013, phases 6 through 12 were developed, and that's shown in the orange pattern there adjacent to Highway 109. All of these different phases extend through and obtain access to Highway 25 through Wildcat Run. And the last phase that was approved and is under development now, partially half constructed, is phase 14, which is kind of in the mauve colored area here to the west of phases 6 through 12. And so the applicant is asking for annexation of the 59 acres to the north of phase 14 and to the west of phases 12 and 11. It also has access to and adjacent to Douglas Lane, which it's kind of a little difficult to see maybe on this aerial photograph, but it's this dark line here that extends, meanders from Red River Road up to Douglas Lane and then extends over back to Old Douglas Lane. And so it makes essentially a loop on the west side of Highway 109. So the applicant also has a request for zoning, rezoning with a preliminary master development plan again to MU. They had submitted an application last year, and their master plan only showed essentially the first part of phase 15 that they wanted to develop. At that time, engineering as well as planning had concerns about how they were designing that, and because we were pretty insistent that they provide access to an alternative access, which would provide two ways to in and out of Twin Eagles subdivision, which will contain about close to 500 units, so that they would have access to Douglas Lane and have an additional way in and out of the subdivision. So, but the applicant deferred that action and essentially withdrew it and resubmitted an application showing all of the phase and subphases, if you will, of section 15 or phase 15. And in this case, they're proposing to break it into 6 subphases. And this would eventually also include access to Douglas Lane on the west side of the property. Their proposal was to develop the last phase of phase 15 with access to Douglas Lane at the end of the project, whereas staff supported that being part of phase 1. So the plan is basically the same as what was submitted earlier, other than they're showing now all of the lots. So we have 171 proposed single-family lots, similar in size and design of what was constructed or has been constructed in Twin Eagles. There was a planning commission meeting on this back in January, and there was an extensive public comment. After receiving public comment and discussion, the planning commission recommended not to annex and to not approve the master development plan. City staff has recommended approval. At the time that phase 14 was considered for approval and was approved by the council, it was clearly conveyed to the council that should there be another phase, that would be the phase 15, that when their second connection would be required. So it's been well known that their next phase would be opportunity to provide for that connection. We do, as was mentioned by one of the persons who spoke earlier, we did receive a letter, and it's included in your agenda package, from the county road superintendent that describes the conditions of the road. It's reflected in the traffic study, and perhaps Mr. Tuttle might want to mention something about that. They received that, indicating that the roadway width is 18 feet. We're talking about Douglas Lane. So either way, because of that and public comment from to the planning commission did not recommend for that annexation or that zoning. Now, the applicant's representative may be on the line and may want to do a presentation of their own. There, as I mentioned, the housing stock, when this is typical housing that they've built in Twin Eagles, would be the same in this next phase. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have pertaining to this request.
Guys, anybody like to say anything?
I don't have any questions, but there was quite a bit of discussion about this during the planning commission meetings, and it was decided that that road was not viable for a subdivision this size to be let out on. Mr. McCord said that the Douglas Lane meanders. Well, it meanders, and you can tell easily from that line with some 90-degree curves there too. And I'm sorry that Mr. Jones didn't put in another exit a long time ago, but I don't really think we need to keep on adding more homes and annexing and when this is already a problem.
And Sean?
Go ahead, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of agree with Linda. I mean, I don't think the subdivision needs to go out onto Douglas Lane. I don't disagree with the subdivision, but I don't think the access on Douglas Lane is what bothers me, because you put that much traffic, and it will be traffic. People going to use the shortest route, shortest way to get out. I travel that road a lot. I ride bikes on that road. It's a narrow road. 18 feet might be the widest spot in the whole road, but I guarantee you go out there and measure other places, it's probably less than 18 feet. I just cannot see them putting that much traffic out there onto Douglas Lane. Is Andy on here with us? Can I ask him a question?
Yes. Andy Leith, are you there?
I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Let me ask you a question. All right.
Yes, sir.
What if, and I can't point it with my pointer here, but anyway, there's probably in that little street going down to Douglas Lane, how many lots are right there on that one section? 25?
I'm maybe less.
What if they cut that off right there, took that and stopped the subdivision right there? Would that be an option? And didn't have that other 25 houses going to Douglas Lane?
Councilman Hayes, I feel like that anything would be an option right here for the developer. I don't know how staff would like that particular option, but I don't know if Mr. Jones would be entirely disagreeable to that because.
Yeah, I guess my thing is just, if you cut that off, they're still going to have I guess they've got, I don't know how many houses that'll take off, but they still got the 2 or 3 exits on or entrances on to 25. And I know you're not going to have that access to Douglas Lane, but I don't think Douglas Lane can handle that kind of traffic. And let's face it, until something major develops out there, if anything ever does, the county's not going to do anything with that road. So that would be. Yeah, everybody agrees with that, but would that be an option? Is that something we could look at? And I don't know if the city council's in agreement with that or not, but if we cut that arm off right there, stop the subdivision right there, and I don't know, I guess he's already bought that property, Randy and Ron, but if they could go in, I don't know if they want to sell that or what, or do whatever they want to do with it, but.
Mr. Hayes, I'll speak up for that. I represent the people in Twin Eagles. And I'm not for that at all because I have to represent the people in Twin Eagles. Those folks have to have a way to get out the back of that subdivision if something happens, and I have to protect them. We've asked Mr. Jones years and years that if, when you expand the subdivision to find another way out, and he bought the property to do that. And I understand the folks on Douglas Lane don't want traffic. You're not going to have that much traffic going out to Douglas Lane. But I have to protect the people in Twin Eagles. We have to have another way to get out of that in the back of that subdivision. So it's not too smart. And I don't think any other subdivision anywhere else you would want this many houses and not a way to get out the back of your subdivision if you had an emergency and somebody had to get out. So I wouldn't support it. I'm just one person, but I wouldn't support it unless there's an exit to get out the back of it.
I just feel like they should have thought of this a long time ago before we put hundreds and hundreds in there.
Well, they did think about it. The planning commission's one told them they had to buy it to go out the back of it.
How long ago was that?
Mr. McCord, y'all can answer that, but y'all been telling them that for years, hadn't you?
When phase 14 came in, that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And if I may jump in here, if not, then you just tell me no.
Go ahead, Andy.
So everyone knows back, and Mayor Brown or Sean, any of you guys have been around longer than I have, can tell me back when the Hatton track, not just the Hatton track extension to 109 was considered, but there was a loop that was considered at one time to go through Twin Eagles all the way around to 386, or I think Nick was around too at this time. And I talked to Randy and Ron about that because it was brought up at Planning Commission. And it was stated at Planning Commission that Randy had an opportunity to connect the Hatton track. I'd like to clarify that on Randy's behalf. So back when this was being considered, Mr. Jones was asked to reserve 1,000-foot right-of-way through his property for the potential Hatton track extension. And so as a developer and someone who makes their livelihood off building homes, they were asked to put their development on hold and reserve 1,000-foot strip for an extension that may or may not have ever happened. And at that time, Randy was against it, and, he just couldn't put his livelihood on hold for something that may or may not happen. And
I believe Ron even served on an advisory committee for this Hatton Track Loop. But Randy has never had an opportunity to connect to the flyover that's being built right now. He would have been able to connect to Hatton Track had it been extended, but it was never extended. And yes, he was against it, but he was against it because he was being asked to hold off on his, I don't think anybody on this planning commission or city council or myself, either one, would say, hey, Andy, why don't you just stop working for about 5 or 10 years and then crank back up if something big happens. So that's their perspective. We have in phases 8 and 10 and 11 and 12 stubbed out to the Duncan property. Our only option for a second entrance has only been Douglas in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Andy,
yes.
Mayor, you have a comment?
I was just going to say, he was asking you and I what we remembered, and that actually predates us. I was going to suggest that you ask Nick to speak on that, because I've always heard that there was an opportunity for a connection at some point, but I wasn't
and
calling that it was to Hatton Track. So I would like to get a concrete answer to that.
I can speak on this too, because I've been around probably longer than anybody on the council, John Alexander too. We set up a committee, okay, back when Joanne was mayor, probably her first term. And that was back when we were going to look at doing Hatton Track all the way across, all the way over to, oh gosh, I can't remember where. But what we decided was at that time, not me, because I was not on the committee, but the funds were not there to do that. So that had a lot to do with it, was the funding part of it. Because that road was going to continue all the way across through the property, and I can't remember where it was going to go to.
386.
Greenlee
Do what?
extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intended to connect back in with Greenlee.
Right, correct. So, but the funding was not there, so that kind of killed that deal right there. So that sums that up, but that's been many, many, many years ago.
Mr. Fennell, I mean, the reality is, whether this develops in the city, whether it develops in the county, they have access to Douglas Lane. And also, if it develops in the county, they're still going to ask to be hooked onto the subdivision. They're still going to get city water and city sewers because it's contiguous with the city. So they're still going to get city services as far as being able to get hooked onto the city sewer system and water. So they're going to get to Douglas Lane no matter what. So yeah, you have a few less houses, but you can't landlock. It's a state law. You can't landlock them from getting out on Douglas Lane.
Is Nick Tuttle here? Nick?
Yes, sir. I'm present.
Hey, I want to further the conversation on what Councilman Overton just spoke of. What Councilman Overton seems like he's saying is that even if this development went through the county, then you would require that development to hook into Twin Eagles. Is that correct?
Are you saying if they chose not to be annexed and just went the route of the county approval process for a subdivision?
Yes, if they put that, what they can build through the county's regulations in place, they'll have more connectivity to Douglas Lane, but also you would require them to hook into Twin Eagles development?
Well, if it's approved in the county, we really don't have any say-so at all as to what happens. Now they could, I don't see that there would be an issue with them actually connecting to the stubbed roads that are stubbed out from the existing Twin Eagles development. I don't think we would stop them from doing that, but they can plan the road network however they want to if it goes through the county, and we really wouldn't have a say.
But Nick, I guess what he's saying is that the county could still turn them down from accessing Douglas Lane, right?
That would be the county's decision. And
that's what I thought. See, Jimmy was saying that you were saying that, yeah, they're going to have to connect to the road regardless, and they're not.
I think they would have the options to connect to either the city street or the county road, Douglas Lane.
Nick, can you landlock a piece of property?
They will have to, I mean, they have access now for what they're doing. So whenever they come through with a plan like they're doing right now with the request of annexation, the city of Gallatin would need to come up with, and in this case, we're suggesting that they connect to both the existing city streets that are stubbed out and Douglas Lane. But there has to be some kind of access provided. So
At what point does there have to be two ways in and out? How many houses? At what point? And why, when we got to that point, was it still being approved? Why didn't then somebody say, no, you can't do anymore because we don't have another way to get out?
So we don't have a regulation that requires, you know, once it gets to a X number of units that you have to have multiple connections. I brought this up last time. There is something within one of the appendices of the fire code, which the city has not adopted because these codes are very restrictive and prohibitive, but it's there as guidance. And that number is 30 units that you're supposed to have a secondary access. Obviously, you know, we don't see that in our normal development, but I think we're way out of whack here with allowing over 500 units with only one way in and one way out. And that's why the staff has been consistent in its recommendation of having this secondary access to Douglas Lane, understanding that it is narrow, but it does meet the minimum county standards for roadway. And I guess it, from a fire apparatus access roadway, it is just a little bit narrow for that particular purpose, but it does serve other emergency access capabilities. A fire apparatus access road should be 20 feet wide according to the fire code. And so Douglas Lane is, doesn't meet that particular requirement either, so.
Nick, would it be in your professional opinion that, as Mr. Hayes said, to close this road off?
You know, my opinion and recommendation since before we allowed phase 14 was that we needed to have a secondary access.
Right.
And we've been talking about that, like you said, Mr. Overton, for years. And really it was even beyond the three years ago that phase 14 came in. We've been talking about this for a long time. And I wasn't in all the discussions in all the rooms where Mr. Jones and maybe our previous mayor, Joanne Graves, about the connectivity and the Albert Gallatin / Hatton Track extension. So I don't know all the story there and why there wasn't more movement. I think both parties had a priority and they didn't really work together to meet in the middle. Because I would have loved to have seen just simply a connection to the end of where we're finishing our project, that Albert Gallatin Avenue, where Twin Eagles would just tie right into that interchange. I don't know. I'm not sure why that really wasn't discussed much or fleshed out, but we're beyond that at this point. And I think, as it's already been said, Douglas Lane is really the only option. And I don't think it's just a question of whether or not, you know, these additional 170 units are added. I think it's really, we already have nearly 500 units that are already approved and being built within the existing phases 1 through 14. And so it's not just a question of whether or not we need to be paying attention to what's happening here in phase 15 and whether those particular residents need a way in and out. It's really all the existing ones, which is what Councilman Overton's already suggested. You know, I wish that this connection to Douglas Lane was a little bit further south, and maybe that becomes an option at some point later if the Twin Eagles development continues to develop. because there does appear to be more vacant land that it's been stubbed out to by the existing Twin Eagles development. And so maybe that becomes more of a reality sometime in the future. But, right now, I guess this is our only option. So.
Mr. Fennell, I'll make a motion. We move it on to council.
Got a motion to move it on to council. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Got a second by Miss Eileen George. I'm sorry. Any more discussion?
I still would like to see them take a look at maybe chopping it off right there with no access to Douglas Lane, but that's just my thought. Andy, I mean, I would like to see y'all take a look at that.
And Mr. Hayes, I want to point out to you and the rest of the council that the county adopted a new zoning resolution back in July, and all of the properties up and down Douglas Lane are zoned rural residential. So they can be broken up into 40,000 square foot lots. All of those properties that are fronting on Douglas Lane can be developed and add traffic to Douglas Lane. There's been, I forgot how many homes that have been built. I did a count on that. I think there were like about 15 or so new homes that have been built in there in the last 5 or 6 years. And they're continuing to slowly build homes, but a lot of that property can be subdivided in the county into 40,000 square foot lots, all up and down Douglas Lane, and to add traffic to Douglas Lane.
Yeah, I understand that, but we're doing this as a city, so I totally understand what you're talking about, Bill.
Okay.
I got you.
Andy, are you still there, Mr. Leith?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I do. I want to add on to what Bill McCord said, and I think you guys have got a plan for this to happen in the county. I know that if Mr. Jones buys this property, Ron and his brother, Randy, they're not going to just sit there and look at it as being a field. What are they able to do in the county, and what impact would that put on the road with this particular development if it was to go in the county?
Yes, sir. Well, as Nick elaborated on during his presentation, of course, all that would have to be approved by the County Planning Commission. And I just left the County Planning Commission. Actually, I'm still in my truck from that meeting where we had a 90-acre subdivision in the northern part of the county. A little bit different situation than this. This is 60 acres. They're going to want something very similar to what Gallatin is going to want in regards to sidewalks, curb streets, things like that. The county, our standard in the county all along has been 18-foot wide roads. And I've developed a lot of lots in the county over the last 2 years, or designed a lot of lots. And so 18 foot has typically been their rule of thumb. If it's 18 foot wide, okay. If it's not, then we make improvements. We have submitted the traffic study to Miss Judy on this particular development, and you all have seen her response. So I feel like that we would be able to develop this under the county zoning and be able to get through. Now, as Mr. Overton said, it's going to be some less lots than what we would get under Gallatin zoning, but we still will be connecting Twin Eagles to Douglas. I feel like, and I can't speak for the county, but I'm speaking from my personal experiences of working here for the last 15 years. I feel like the county would want us to connect to the city streets for the same reasons Gallatin staff wants us to connect to Douglas. Regardless of how many lots we built, regardless of what we did on that 60 acres, but the county is going to want the connectivity just like the city wants to connect, the city staff wants the connectivity. So maybe phase 15 is not as many lots, but the remainder of Twin Eagles would still have access to Douglas through phase 15.
So
does that answer your question?
Yes, your professional opinion is that no matter what, one day this is going to connect.
It's going to connect, yes, sir. I mean, it's going to connect one day. And I feel like right now it could connect to Douglas without making improvements based on what we have done in other parts of the county in similar situations. Now, Are we going to get the same density? I'm not going to lie to you. No, we're not. But we would still get the connectivity.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Would anyone else like to say anything before we take the vote?
I'll say something, Sean, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Councilman Fan.
I've kind of, the last few days, drove around some of Mr. Jones' previous subdivisions, and I'd just like to say that he's created a lot of jobs and opportunity and a lot of development in some of the counties, in particular Gallatin. And some of the subdivisions are older now, but I think he puts a pretty good product together. And I think the houses he's putting here is what we're going to have a need for in the future, which is something that is reasonably priced. Of course, that's a matter of opinion to some people, I'm sure, but I think it's the price range that we're going to need in the future. Considering that the traffic report, which it seemed to be okay according to our county, I'm going to support this connectivity, because I think it's the right thing to do for the majority of people.
Can I say something, Sean?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Councilman.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Fan, 100%. I definitely like all the connectivity that I can muster up, and I certainly wouldn't want to cut that arm off and put a stop there. I definitely think we need to make that connectivity as well. And I think in the future, whether it be more or not, but we definitely need to do it now, I think. And I support it as well.
And Sean?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Craig.
I don't have a problem with the development whatsoever. It's just the connectivity to the road. I just think it's going on to a road that cannot handle the extra traffic right now. And that's just my thoughts. I mean, no problem with the development at all. I think he builds a great product, and, I agree with Steve, but I think the connectivity is not the right time, right place right now.
So you want to put the people in Twin Eagles in jeopardy, but not giving them a way to get out if something happens in there?
I don't think it's Craig doing that. I think it's already been done. And now we're just trying to backtrack and find a way for that to happen. And it's not a good way to do it. I agree with Craig on, I mean, Twin Eagles is a fine subdivision. I just don't know. I know that it's not a good access road to put a lot of people out on.
Well, we all know that Randy Jones has done well in this community and built a very fine house, him and his brother. And we all know that this is a tough decision for all of us to make. But one thing I'd like to say is veiled assertion that we're benefit developments in exchange for campaign money is offensive and just plain wrong.
It's just, I can't believe anybody would even ask that or mention that.
Over $250.
But Sean, that's just politics. We are.
I know, John D, and I appreciate you.
We are responsible to do a job, and
I'll resent it.
There's going to be some plus and minus in every decision you make, and every decision you make, you're not going to be able to please everybody. So
let's call it to a vote.
I would like to make one more comment. And this is going back to what Craig, I agree with everybody here in some form or fashion. And this would be a question for the developer. Would it be possible to put a road through with a crash gate? And we keep talking about emergencies, with a crash gate, and limit the amount of people that can use Douglas Lane?
Since you asked about the developer, Councilman Fan, I can say from our point of view, we're all for that. But I don't think that some of the city department heads were in favor of that. I think that's been brought up in the past, and specifically, I think Chief Williams was against it himself.
With a crash gate, he was against it?
He was in a different subdivision, but I mean, I would be good with that too. And maybe, I don't know, since Chief Williams isn't here, but he said himself it's not safe for his apparatus to go down Douglas Lane. Maybe he would think it was safer to have a crash gate there and just use it in an emergency situation.
One One thing I want to say is if it's not safe, why we got school buses going up and down it?
Exactly.
Exactly.
We don't have 500 more cars going out on it at the same time, though.
Approximately how many houses would use that road with a crash gate?
According to Linda, 500 cars.
I just think that there was kind
No,
of.
I don't think y'all understand my question. I'm thinking about putting a crash gate, not at Douglas Lane. I'm talking about back toward the subdivision itself, where part of them would have to use Douglas Lane to enter and exit, and the other part would use the existing road now that they're going in and out of. The crash gate would let someone in an emergency situation go on through.
So you mean something like a gated community for part of it?
Well, I wouldn't call it gated. I mean, if you're in an emergency situation, you're going to run your car through it or your truck or whatever anyway. What I'm trying to do is split up the traffic count. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just throwing that out there and see if it's a possibility. I've already stated that I'm going to vote for this because I think it's the right thing to do. I'm just trying to meet people in the middle of the road here.
Andy, did the traffic study show how many cars would probably go to Douglas Lane?
It did, Councilman, but at the end of the day, I don't want to try to mislead anyone. Those are estimates, and they're good faith estimates, but they're still estimates.
That's right.
And Nick could concur with that or disagree as the city's engineer, but you know, without having those houses built out and actually counting on a typical day,
that's right. You don't know that.
We're only estimating, but we don't estimate there to be a large number using Douglas because it's going to be more convenient for the bulk of the subdivision to go out Wildcat.
That's right.
Now I know that there was some question about the traffic study from some public comment being during COVID times. Those traffic numbers were adjusted for the COVID. They were looked at historical data and things like that to make sure that those low counts were beefed up to account for the decrease in traffic. So COVID was taken into account with the traffic study. But at the same time, they're just estimates as to what would be using Douglas. And it's not going to be what I would consider a large number of vehicles, but that's from my perspective.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, Sean, I want to call for the question.
Call for the question, Ms. Kittrell.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Abstain?
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George.
I would like to say first that I have also received threatening messages about my receiving campaign funds. I did receive campaign funds, but it would never jeopardize my vote or my credibility by $200. So I can assure you that this is not going to be something that I appreciate from the public, in addition to being called a corrupt person. And my integrity is much more important to me, but I will vote yes.
Councilman Hayes,
No.
Councilwoman Love,
No.
Councilman Overton,
Yes.
4 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. That takes care of 1, 2, and 3, right, Ms. McCauley? We're just moving it up to council.
Well, it depends on what the motion was. If the motion was for all 3, then it takes care of all 3.
Amy, was that?
Motion was for all 3.
Okay, there we go. All right, guys, moving along to item number 4. Bill McCord, this is a discussion of findings of an annexation study. Mr. McCord.
Okay, council members, this is a presentation on the findings of an annexation study for the Woods Crossing project, which is on Woods Ferry Road, just south of Nichols Lane on the west side of the road. It's 31 acre annexation, and the development will be a single family residential neighborhood on about almost 36 acres. So in a nutshell, and I don't want to get into too many details, there's the 36 acres. Parts of it are already in the city. The easterly portion is already in the city, and there's a house on one of the parcels. And the bulk of the westerly portion will be developed into subdivision, as well as parts of the eastern portion. And they'll be removing the home that's on there. But in a nutshell, the feasibility study was done and is indicating that the single family project would be a net benefit to the city. And that's described in your agenda report. So just want to provide that information. In a 10-year time period, it'd be about $2.3 million in revenue that would be realized, and about the same amount of expenditure. So it's essentially a break-even proposal. And that's usually what you're going to see with residential development.
Okay.
There's no recommendation or a vote that would come into this. So,
okay, Linda, you got a question?
Next week.
Yeah, I was going to ask Nick to, if he could address that caller's, I think Ms. Posey was her name, concerns about that flooding in that area. Is that being considered? Do you know anything about it, Nick? Or
Councilwoman Love, I hate to jump in there, but is there a representative for Good All Hope
Yeah, that's not something that's on our agenda tonight, so I don't know that we should be discussing it.
Woods
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's not on there tonight.
Okay.
What's not? I thought this was I thought Woods Crossing was what she was calling about. I mean, the lady had called about and what we were talking about.
Go ahead, Mayor.
She was asking about some drainage issues along creeks that flow through that area. So this is just about the annexation study and the feasibility and the revenues that projected expenditures if the property is developed.
I mean, I think you can discuss it, but I think that you need to,
Have some representation here.
Or or make a motion to consider it, I think would be appropriate. I should defer to Ms. Macaulay. I always get myself in trouble when I start trying to give procedural advice.
Ms. Macaulay.
Well, I guess we really are just talking about the annexation. I do think that you can talk about the flooding if you want to. It's not actually a part of the annexation, so it probably would be more proper to make a motion, but you can discuss it tonight.
Well, this will come back up where it would be more appropriate at another time.
I'm sure it will come back up, Ms. Love. I know for a fact it will.
All right. Well, I'll just
defer
wait.
till then.
I'll just ask about it then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, let's move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Mr. McCord, this is about local government planning advisory committee. You got the floor.
Yes, Council, this is actually 2 items. It's a resolution and an ordinance. The resolution is essentially a request to the state of Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development to deactivate the city's regional planning authority. We currently have a planning region that surrounds portions of the city just beyond the city limit boundary. And the other part of this is would be, of course, to deactivate the regional plan authority. I actually wrote that on here twice, but the actual part would then change the composition, and as part of this request to the state to change from a regional municipal planning commission And then we would be authorized by statute to, without having to get approval by the state, to then create a municipal planning commission. Now, the planning commission met last night and recommended approval of a similar ordinance, or excuse me, a similar resolution to move forward with that. And the reason that we're doing this primarily is because the county had adopted a new zoning resolution last summer, and I think I mentioned that earlier in the other item number. And so the county now has the professional staff to manage growth within their boundaries. So by doing that, they essentially took away the zoning authority that the city had in the planning region. What we do now have is still subdivision regulation authority, but that creates a lot of confusion for not only the staff, but certainly property owners and people who are interested in developing or using their properties in that area. They would be subject to the city's subdivision regulations, but having to design that subdivision in accordance with the county zoning. Now, the city of Maryville did something very similar to this. They were in the same situation where the county took over the zoning authority over in Blount County on areas that were identified as a planning region. And they went through the same process that we're asking y'all to consider as well. And if you approve this, that we'll be asking the state to consider. If you do approve this resolution, it will be forwarded then to, and this ordinance, it would be then forwarded to the state, and the state local government planning and advisory committee would then make a decision as to whether or not to relinquish or deactivate the regional planning authority and take away the regional municipal planning commission. So what the ordinance does essentially creates a municipal planning commission. And the municipal planning commission is composed of members that are appointed by the mayor and of course the council member from persons who live inside the city. Right now we have, because we are a regional planning commission, we have one member who is a resident outside the city but in the planning region, and that person would be replaced by a person who has actually already been appointed, is just waiting for this action to be completed before they take office.
Okay, Bill, is there someone that would like to ask Bill a question?
Oh, I just like to make a motion to approve it on the council.
We got a motion by Councilman Overton. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Got a second by Councilman John D. Alexander. This is open for more discussion. Anybody like to ask a question? Let's move for the vote. Ms. Kittrell.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. Now let's move to ordinance or item on agenda number 6, ordinance. Zach Wilkinson, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a continued discussion over ordinance rewriting the existing solid waste code. Like we discussed at the last work session, it really doesn't change a lot as far as functionality. It does move some of the more operational related items into a separate document and just kind of cleans up some of the language that's there. There is one section of it, though, that I wanted to have a little bit deeper discussion on, and that's section 14.9, which establishes the collection and service fees for the Environmental Services Department. And as y'all know, the Environmental Services Department is funded through that collection fee. Right now, that collection fee is $12 per can per month. Right now, that fee is adequate to cover pretty much our garbage costs, but as the years as growth has occurred, our brush pickup service has declined and will continue to decline if we keep that rate. We've kind of allocated all our resources towards garbage pickup, and brush pickup is kind of second priority. So in your package, you'll find I've put together kind of 3 different options of what we can do regarding specifically the brush pickup. So I know it's something that a lot of y'all do get calls about and questions about, especially in the spring and after storms and stuff when our route times are a little bit longer than usual. So option 1 is just keeping the existing rate that we have. If we do that, brush pickup level of service will continue to decline as we keep on growing as a city. More demands are placed on the garbage pickup side of the operation, and so we'll be pulling from the brush side to the garbage side. Option 2 is funding some of the brush pickup through the general fund. Some cities do this. I would recommend against it just because it adds a layer of complication that I don't think we really want to deal with. And then option 3 is what I would recommend, and that is raising the existing fee up to $16 per can per month. I know that that will allow us the adequate revenue to beef up the brush pickup program a little bit, and also, I mean, we expect, nothing's been told officially, but we do expect some of our tipping fees for garbage to go up in the future, in the coming years. I mean, right now, the Resource Authority, where we take our garbage, they're experiencing a ton of growth, and I know they're making plans to try to accommodate some of that growth. And I mean, what that means is some of that cost will trickle down to us, and which will result in probably higher tipping fees in the future. So it'll help kind of head that off as well. So like I said, with option 3, be establishing a $16 per can per month fee, which is a $4 increase. Then also it would also allow the option for non-environmental services customers to get brush pickup at the cost of $150 a load. Right now, we only provide that service for environmental service customers. And we've had a lot of requests to provide that service for people that don't necessarily use our trash service. So that would allow us, and that $150 a load would cover our cost for providing that service for non-environmental service customers. That being said, I'll try to answer any questions there.
Zach, if this was to pass, when would the $16 go into effect?
Well, I guess I would recommend making it going into effect effective our new budget year, which would be July 1. I think it probably makes sense just to hold off and make the increase effective at that point.
Okay, thank you.
And can I say something too?
Yes, Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, Zach and I talked a little bit today. We got, as y'all know, trash in our area, being on the Resource Authority Board, we have increased over the last 10 years. We have doubled our tonnage in that's just last 10 years. So yes, we are coming up with an expansion, and we just got some numbers last night for the first time, which is going to be around probably close to $17 million for an expansion, which us as the Resource Authority Board and the Resource Authority is going to have to fund. So what he's saying is tipping fees, yes. I mean, they will go up. They are going to go up. There's no doubt about that. I don't know how much they're going to go up. We probably will know a little bit more within 2 months. That's why I would like to see if we don't care. I mean, I hate to vote on this right now. I mean, because we might need to, we might not need to go up as much, but we might need to go up more. I don't know, but I'd like to see us put this off for at least another month if we could, if that's not too late, Zach.
No, that'd be fine. And once we got a better idea what those fees are, we can run the numbers and make sure they make sense. And then, and hopefully we'll have them in time to where we can budget accordingly for next year's physical budgets. We're going through that preparation right now, but yeah, we can defer it until we know some, at least
there's a lot more. Yeah, and there's a lot more that that that's going on with the resource authority that might help us out too. So that's coming up too. So, you know, there's a lot more that we'll know within a month or two. So if you don't mind, I'd like to see us kind of just put that off and not really vote on that now. Maybe wait, maybe bring it up in another month, you know, before, that way we got time to put it on for the next year's budget.
Definitely. No, it makes sense. I'll just be looking to keep an ear open for latest on the resource authority and bring it back to y'all, or somebody will bring it back to you at that point.
Zach, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How has the fuel cost in the past reflected the cost of the tipping fee?
I mean, the tipping fee, honestly, I don't know how it's reflected. I mean, it has to factor in. I know, I mean, as far as the rate that we charge for the $12 per camper per month, that was established back when fuel costs were probably a lot higher, honestly, than they are now. So we've been fortunate. Fuel hasn't been an issue for us. Now on the tipping fee side, I don't know if Craig has any insight on that, or.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, what it is like, we don't, our fee is set what, at 44, right, Zach? I think we talked about that today, $44 a ton.
Yes, sir.
That's set. I mean, we don't increase that just because gas goes up or anything like that, or the cost of it. So it's set until we change that fee, until we say we're going to change that fee to $50 a ton.
Right.
Like we were looking at last night at our meeting, we were looking, yeah, gas went up a little bit. I think it went up, I can't remember how much from last month, you know, so it did. So yeah, we take that in consideration, but when's the last time, Zach, that we've increased the fee, tipping fee?
Not since I've been around, so 6 years plus.
It's probably been, it's probably been what, 10 years at least?
My guess, it was probably last time was whenever the last time the environmental services fee was increased.
And the cost of business has gone up.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's fuel, equipment has, I mean, I can tell you the cost of a truck has gone up $100,000 in my 6 years here, just for an automatic garbage truck, which is.
So Craig, you think you have more information, feel more comfortable about the?
Give me another month. Give us a month, because we should have some information more coming. Let's put it that way, because we just found this out last night. I mean, our cost was almost double what we thought it was going to be.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. You making a motion to have this deferred?
I want to.
Paige got her hand up first.
Yes.
I just want to make a couple of comments. One, I'm very, very grateful to Mr. Wilkinson for working on this because, as you know, he left employment with the city of Gallatin a week ago. So we really appreciate you continuing to work on this. And like you said, somebody will bring it back in a month. I appreciate his looking forward and trying to figure out how to responsibly fund this. A couple of things I do want to mention is that I do feel like we need to look at the bulk item pickup, potentially limit that to one bulk pickup a year per resident and charge for people that that have regular bulk pickups. Same on large brush collection. I want to see us continue to do routine brush collection because I think it keeps our streets and our yards looking nice. But I know that sometimes they pick up very, very, very large loads. And I think that they should have the authority to fund those large loads that are more than whatever they gauge is an appropriate, just brush pile. And what was the other thing that I was going to ask on? And I do support charging the larger fees for the non-environmental services customers. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Mayor. I like this little thing up here. That's pretty neat. I just found it out.
John, I got one question.
Let me ask one first, Councilman Overton. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Zach, unrelated trash little comment that I have is my phone got a couple of texts here just a second ago. I know that we're having a hard time with the inmates because of COVID, and I see trash on the side of the road in places. I would just like to say to citizens, please try to pick it up. I do. Try to do your part. Try to keep our city clean. We take pride in our city. That's it. Councilman Overton.
Zach, and I guess it's a question for Zach, and I just had somebody text me and ask me this, but in a condominium complex where they got trash, but they would not have any brush, how do you adjust that where you're not charging those folks for brush?
We don't. That fee's set per trash can, and
Okay.
it is, if you're paying so much for your trash can, it's covering brush pickup and
Okay.
and garbage pickup.
You
It's
answered,
not split out separately.
you answered my question.
It's not really any different than somebody lives in a yard without trees.
Right. You answered my question. And I don't have any in my yard, so.
Okay, nobody else has raised their hand. I don't see no raised hand symbol on there
I
yet.
just want to say one thing, and that is to agree with Sean about picking up your own trash when you don't throw it out, and don't expect the city or anybody else to come along and pick up after you.
That's the truth.
Yes, most people are grown and ought to know that.
Well, if you haven't seen the insert in the utility bill this month, I think the whole newsletter is pretty much dedicated to trying to get people to take some responsibility for the litter in our community. I think, Mr. Overton, you mentioned briefly the inmate challenge, but I'd like to expound on that because I don't think people realize that typically the city has several inmate crews that pretty much pick up trash year round. And for over a year now, we've had no inmate crews that can pick up trash year round. And Public Works employees have been working really hard on picking up trash when they're not doing all the other things that they do. And I know that TDOT, I've seen them, their crews in town picking up trash, but it's ridiculous that there's trash anywhere in our city because that trash doesn't grow there. Somebody actually puts it there, and it takes all of us to do that. One of the things that I'm also going to do, and this is for your information, and we'll give some warning, I think, to the people who are going to get these letters, but I am actually going to be sending out a letter to all of our establishments in the city that serve food because, like food to go, because we have some entities that provide trash receptacles and some that do not. And I know it's an aggravation. I know it is an expense, but I really appreciate those places that serve food to go that do provide trash cans. And I think that they all have a responsibility to provide receptacles. And I think that will help to reduce the trash. The other piece of this is that the police department has been working for quite some time addressing the hauling of refuge. They've been, stopping trucks, heading to the resource authority and telling them that their trucks are supposed to be covered, but they have not covered their trash appropriately, and warning them that they will be ticketed if they continue to do that. And I'm sorry, I think I said Mr. Overton said that, but I think it was actually Vice Mayor Fennell. I apologize.
Okay. Anybody else like to raise their hand?
Mr. Alexander's got his hand raised.
I thought you'd be proud of me. I got
All
my
right, John, I see it. I appreciate that. I really do. Go ahead.
I thought I was doing something. I was so excited about it. You just overlooked my little hand.
Thank you, John. You just on the far left of the screen.
I just want to mention to Zach, maybe be aware of, when it comes to brush pickup, if say, for instance, you come by my house every week and I got brush out there every week, I may be doing a sideline job and bring it to my house for y'all to pick up. How will that factor in?
The way I understood it is, so technically, we're picking up brush that comes straight off the lot of that customer. We're not supposed to be picking it up if it's coming from if say you had a commercial tree cutter bringing all the stuff they're trimming to their lot. We do run into that, and we try to work with them to let them know. But technically, we want that brush to come from the lot that we're picking it up from for that paying customer.
Well,
Right.
Because I've known some of that to happen. So I just want us to be mindful of it. Nobody should have brush every week unless, going on. Okay.
We work closely with the property maintenance department to help kind of weed those culprits out, and they're very helpful to kind of
good point
address some of those issues.
So I think we all collectively agree with Councilman Hayes as far as deferring this right here. I don't think there's no vote required on it, right, Ms. McCauley?
No, you don't have to vote to defer it if you're not moving it forward.
Okay, here we go to item number 7. This is Rachel Nichols, and this is about appropriating federal grant to police department. Ms. Nichols, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next 2 items are appropriating 2 different grants that the police department has received. I think that mayor actually included these awards in her State of the City back in October, but the federal government has just now gotten around to finalizing their budget. So you've been notified of these grants. You've approved them. We're just now getting the money, and we need to appropriate the money.
Motion approved.
Approve.
We got a motion by Councilman Overton. We have Councilwoman Love that seconded it properly. It's open for discussion. Any discussion, raise your hand.
Yeah, we just want to hear Bill Sarl say something. So Bill, can you comment on it?
The good thing about these grants is it's not costing, there's no new money. They're both, first grant is in-kind money, and the second one is completely straight federal money.
Thanks, Bill.
No money up
Bill. Anyone else? We got a motion, got a second. Connie Kittrell, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
And that was on ordinance 7 and 8, correct, Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ordinance number 9, Ms. Nichols, for fires, all station number 3, Ms. Nichols.
Yes, sir. The county has asked that we make an addition to our Fire Hall 3 to be able to house an ambulance and an ambulance crew. The conversation started back last year sometime, and we have bid that project. The low bid amount was $255,900. The county will be paying for this construction, but since it's on our property, we'll be the ones running the actual construction, but the county's going to reimburse us for the cost of it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Hayes. We got a second by Councilman Love. I think I'm correct. Open the
Yes.
floor to discussion. I got their hands raised. Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Ms. Nichols, this is about item number 10 on the agenda, Scott Woodard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Fennell. The purpose of this ordinance is to allow the Gallatin Fire Department to recoup money spent in the repair of Station 3 due to a lightning strike and have those funds added back into our building maintenance and repair line.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Hayes, and I got Councilman John Alexander on the second right there. Do we have any hands up for any discussion? We got one, Mayor Brown.
Yeah, I was just, I just want to be clear on that. I mean, the repairs have been made, or this is going to cover the repairs?
No, ma'am, the repairs have been made and we paid for it out of our repair and maintenance line. And this is the
Okay.
money's coming back.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do we have any more hands to raise? Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell's call the vote.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Ms. Kittrell. Guys, I'm moving you along pretty quick, but I look down here, number 11, we got Bill McCord. Bill McCord, you got the floor.
Connie Flood.
Ms. Flood, yes. Be quicker. Ms. Flood.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in on this one. This is a request for approval of a resolution to create an additional planner one position in the planning department because of our workload. We currently have 9 positions and 1 is vacant. We are asking for the vacant position not to be filled, but to be replaced with this planner one position. It will be about $10,000, a little more than $10,000 more per year in salary and about $1,700 and so dollars per year more in fringe benefits. So we need this resolution to authorize that, and that will allow us to begin hiring. We've had some money in reserve, obviously, because we haven't had that administrative assistant one position most of all this year. So we will be fine this year, and we'll include that planner one position in lieu of the assistant administrative assistant position next year.
Motion
Okay,
to
Bill,
approve.
Ms. Flood, would you like to elaborate on this any?
It's a reclassification, and he is in need of that position.
He is.
Motion to approve.
Yes, in my
Second.
opinion, yes.
All right, guys, slow down, slow down. We got a motion by Councilman Hayes. Who seconded that?
I did. Correct.
All right.
I
We
mean,
got a
Jones.
second by Councilman Fan. Now let's open our hands for discussion. We got Paige first and second is Jimmy. Make
Yeah,
round.
I was just going to jump in here and say that to be clear, this will have budgetary impact in the coming year, but realize that there is funding that was dedicated from the Facebook project to support those departments that are, carrying the lion's share of that work as a result of it. And planning certainly has a lot of demands on them. And I think that this is a really good move for the proper production of that department. So that's it.
Councilman Overton, you're next in
Well,
queue.
when she answered my question, I just thought we were gonna hold off to July before we created any more positions and hired anybody else, but apparently not, so.
Well, I think planning circumstances, he's been without a person for quite some time, and rather than hiring someone in that role and putting, another one on the table, I think that this is a smarter move for the long term.
Mayor, what is it April that our budget meetings start?
No, they're actually going to start in March. We did that schedule today. I think they're starting like maybe March 17th.
Okay, all right, Miss Eileen, I didn't see your hand being raised or.
Yes,
in the
my
queue?
question, thank you. My question is the $10,000 increase, is that because we're looking for someone with more credentials? Is that the reason?
It's a position that,
Go ahead, Connie.
it's a position that on the salary grid would start out paying more. It's a higher paying position.
Okay, got it.
Sounds like there's more responsibilities.
Definitely.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Ms. Flood or Mr. Bill McCord, the planner? Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Craig?
Councilman
Yes.
Hayes. Thank you. Councilwoman Love
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes,
7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, Ms. Kittrell, now we'll move into our last item on the agenda. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Susan McCauley, City Attorney.
Yes, as you heard earlier tonight, the county is looking to add on to Fire Hall 3, and we've been discussing that for quite some time. What I have before you is a resolution to approve an interlocal agreement that the county law director and I have both approved. It just sets out the parameters, saying that the county is going to pay for the construction, but the addition, once it's added to the building, will be the city's. The city will be required to maintain that property going forward. There will be no exchange of employees and all the parameters that are set out in the agreement that's in your packet. And I just ask that you move this on to council.
motion approved.
We got a motion by Councilman Overton and a second was properly done by Councilman John D. Alexander. Now we open for discussion. Ms. Mayor Brown, you got your hand up. Are you wishing to speak?
No, I didn't take it down from before. I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Madam Mayor. Open for discussion. We don't see any right here. Ms. Kittrell, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yep.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, guys, that concludes our regular agenda items, and now we're gonna move down to other business. Somebody wants something on other business?
I got one. And
Wait a minute, Jimmy.
I'm gonna ask the mayor first. Mayor, do you have the 3 petitions to close streets off of the chamber? Okay, I'll defer to the mayor then, let her do it.
Did you have something else? You're welcome to go ahead.
No, it's just those 3, the parking lot and the closures for the chamber. That's all I was gonna bring up.
Okay, yeah, I have them sitting right here. And so if it's okay, Vice Mayor Fennell, I'll go ahead with these.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 street closures. They're from the Gallatin Chamber. The first 2 actually are related to the Gallatin Shamrock Run. One is for the closure of the downtown Gallatin City Hall parking lot, and that is from 5 a.m. until 10 a.m. And also with that is the closure of Main Street from Locust to Hartsville Pike, Locust from Main Street to Broadway, Franklin from Locust to College, Main Street from Main Street to Craft, Craft from Craft to Hartsville Pike, Hartsville Pike from Craft to Main Street. I know that you've got a perfect visual from that description. I do have signatures from all the department heads. Is this the same route that they've been doing each year?
Same route always. We done last year, except we started at the chamber now instead of starting at the high school.
And the streets will be closed from 6:45 to 9:30.
Correct.
So that is their request. And so those are the 2 submissions. I think you are okay to vote on them together. I don't think one could happen without the other for the.
Second.
We got a motion on the floor by Councilman Overton. It's properly been seconded by Councilwoman Love. Now we got the floor open for discussion. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell, call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Mayor, Madam Mayor.
The second one, or actually the third request from the chamber, is for an event on 9/18. It is for a farm to table dinner that the chamber is sponsoring. They're asking to close the L of the downtown square. I do not have times on here.
Is it the 18th or the 25th, Mayor?
It says 9/18/2021.
Okay.
And it does not have starting and ending times. It's not have starting and ending times. You want me to bring this one back? We have time.
Yes, we got time. Let's bring it back because I want to clarify that date.
Okay, and I think we need to have times on there before we vote on that. The only other item that I have for your contemplation and potentially consideration and vote is that Governor Lee is extending the virtual meeting allowance. I don't remember what if there's a deadline on this order. Ms. Ty McCauley might recall. I just saw that it was coming, but the order actually came today and I haven't seen that. And so it's up to this council to decide if you're ready to return to in-person meetings or if you want to continue virtually. I know that they are still working on installing the new equipment in our chambers. I think Mr. Henschel felt like in about 2 weeks or by 3 weeks that we should be good and everything should be working well up there, but we haven't had any tests and everything's not fully installed yet. So we could meet together as early as next week, but he felt like things would go smoother if we could wait a few more weeks, but ultimately it's up to you all.
Mayor, I read that and I think it's just through the next 30 days through the end of March. So I would say let's just keep on meeting electronically through March to give Mr. Henschel and time to get our room ready.
Second.
We got a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Linda Love, and we've been seconded by Councilman Overton. Now we open for discussion. Any discussion there? Greg, I see your hand up. Would you like to say something? Strange.
No, I don't. I guess, where, how did I put my hand up? I didn't know how I did that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Mayor, if I could, I just spoke to Ms. Baker. She said that event's on September the 18th and we need it from 5 to 8. And they'll start setting up around noon. The farm to table.
So it need to be from noon to 8.
Yes. But the event's actually from 5 to 8. They're just gonna start setting up around noon, so. But she also wanted me to remind everybody that whoever's gonna be in the Shamrock Run, that we have a lot of potholes and be real careful. So we have some streets that might not be completely done by then, and be careful with the potholes that's out there, so.
Anybody else?
I have something.
Mayor, do we need to vote on that or you wanna wait?
It's up to you guys.
Let's
My
wait.
only apprehension here is that the signatures, from the people around the square, well, I know the one that I'd be most concerned about is the one that's open, which is that 106 Public Square, and I think she's on the committee, so I guess I don't have to worry about that, right?
Yeah, let's just vote on it, get it over with.
Yeah, we can vote on it. It may come back to you because I know that there does have to be approval to have beer at this, but that would be a different issue later on, so.
Motion to approve the event.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Jimmy Overton, a second by Councilwoman Linda Love. Now it's open for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Kittrell, roll call.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilman Alexander,
Yes.
Councilman Fan,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Love,
Yes.
and Councilman Overton.
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank y'all.
Okay, we're still on other business. Councilwoman Eileen. I'll get it. I promise you, Eileen. I think of the song and it hits me right. Come on, Eileen.
All right. Well, thank you. I would like to point out that on the City Council website, my phone number is not listed. And I have had people saying that they're not able to reach me and leaving messages, and I'm not receiving messages, so I don't know where the messages are going. However, I just want the public to know that I'm very, very responsive in returning calls or emails. So is there a way to get that fixed?
Mr. Henschel will take care of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, I've got one thing I'd like to say. I had somebody text me, two people text me, spotted Bill McCord out on 109 cleaning trash up himself on a weekend. We need to give him the Good Citizen Trash Picker Upper Award.
Hey, I want to add to that, Mr. Fennell, because it goes even beyond that. Mr. McCord walked to and from work last week, and he does not live close. He lives many miles from here.
Wow, one lady just asked me on here if he was.
Hey, he don't live that far.
It's like probably 4 or 5 miles, isn't it?
No, it's not that far.
Mr. McCord, how far do you live from City Hall?
About 2.5 miles.
Yeah, there you go.
So he walked 5 miles today.
That's what you used to walk to school every day, didn't you, Paige? 5 miles to school every day.
Bill, am I okay with giving this lady your phone number? She wanted to know if you was single or not.
I'm single.
Okay, all right.
Let's move on.
All right, moving on. Department head reports, department heads.
Hold on, Sean. I have my little hand up.
Okay, I see you, John.
I just
Come on, Councilman.
learned how to do it, and you just throw a little hand.
Councilman John D. on the queue.
On a serious note, I just want to everybody be in prayer for Vice Principal. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Vice Principal Andrew Turner lost his brother, Brother Robert Turner, and also Elroy Milton passed away, and also Miss Clara Glees and Darrell Johnson passed away. But on last week, the Sumner County Board of Education lost a dear person in the form of Miss Betty Johnson, and we certainly want to keep her family in prayer and pray for her husband, Brother Dave Johnson. They are members of Nashville Road Church of Christ, so keep all these families in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Now department head reports. Do you have any department head would like to add to this meeting? Seeing none, I'll entertain. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McCord, we got you.
Yeah, quickly, I just want to give you an update on a couple of things. The Urban Transportation Planning Grant that y'all authorized us to apply for with other cities in the county. We were awarded that by TDOT. We're just one of many partners in that. So we'll be working on that. It's a countywide bike ped plan. And so TDOT will be administering that. Also, the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee made a decision. That's the state advisory committee from the Economic and Community Development Department. And they approved the urban growth boundary change swap with Hendersonville. That's only the property that includes a little bit of the Westfield property the Southeastern Corporation owns, as well as the right-of-way Big Station Camp Boulevard between the railroad and Big Station Camp Creek. It doesn't mean that it's in the city, at least not yet, but it does mean that it's eligible for annexation now in zoning. Also, the MPO adopted the long-range transportation plan, the 2045 plan, and Gallatin area has several projects included in that. And if you want to call and talk to me about that, I'll be glad to talk to you about those projects that are included in that new transportation plan. And I'll be preparing a traffic volumes chart update for each of y'all. I know traffic's been an issue. You get complaints about it. So this will give you an idea of how many daily vehicle trips are traveling certain segments of roadway in the Gallatin area. And it also gives you a level service comparison so you can see how the road's functioning based on levels of service. So that's all I have.
All right. Guys, it's been a relatively long one this evening. I appreciate y'all hanging in there. And Councilman Alexander, I just want to tell you your words of wisdom on how for me to become a better councilman does not go unnoticed. So I appreciate your words there. The last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There we go. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, y'all. See you later.
Y'all come back now. You hear?